What's up, everybody? It's Eli here from TreeFall Studios, and welcome to my podcast episode called Dev Discussion. On this show, I interview people from all across the internet, game developers of all shapes and sizes, hobbyists, indie developers, and AAA. And today, I'm joined by Matthew from Soul Engine Studio, and we're going to be talking about his studio starting out in the game industry in 2024 when things are looking a little rocky. All right, dude, how you doing today?
I am doing just dandy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
Nice, man. Yeah, I think we connected not too long ago. I just happened to run across one of your YouTube videos. And also, we have a mutual friend, Thomas Stewart. Check out his channel
Yeah,
if you
totally.
haven't. I saw you in his Discord, and I was like, oh, that's the guy I saw on YouTube, 6 months ago. So I was like, oh, since I saw your Discord and I saw your video, I was like, yo, dude, what's up? And then we kind of just chatted and connected from there. So
Yes.
I'm glad to have you on the show. So let's go ahead and get started. You might as well go ahead and introduce yourself. Let everyone know who you are, what you do, what your game development stuff is like, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, so I am Matthew. I guess you could say, the face of Soul Engine Studio. There's three of us on the team here at Soul Engine. And yeah, as far as like development goes, I'm kind of like the jack of all trades of the team. I can do a little bit of everything. We have like a programmer and we have an artist and a musician. And then I can't do music, but I can do a little bit of the other things. And then I kind of run the YouTube channel and do most of the marketing for the game we have coming up. And so yeah, we have a YouTube channel and I stream on Wednesdays. And yeah, that's who we are. And pumped to be here again. Yeah.
Sweet, man. All right, so it's actually pretty cool because from what I understand, you guys are like you're a startup team. You're trying to break into the industry, but you're actually starting up not by yourself. Most of the guys I talk to do start right away on solo development, and you're starting off with a couple of friends. Why don't you talk about that a little bit of what it's like to be on an indie team, not just by yourself, maybe managing responsibilities, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
How does that go? Is
Yeah.
everyone, is it going well? I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
I'll let
Yeah.
you talk about it.
Yeah.
Or is everyone ready to fight each other out of the
No,
team?
no. Yeah. So actually, I was a solo developer for a long time. I've probably been like making games for like a little bit over 10 years now. And for the first 7 years, I was solo developing. And I didn't finish any games during those 7 years. I didn't finish any games, and I basically was about to give up. But then my friend, who is now the musician and artist on our team, was like, "Yo, we should like do a jam together." And I was like, "That sounds amazing." And we made one game, and then we made 7 more, and we just started making games together, and it was fantastic.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and that really just like, once you finish one game, it's just like that high of finishing. It just, it's amazing. And then, so we made 7 more games, and then, we kind of wanted to make bigger games, just more complex games. And we're like, I was doing the programming, and like I said, I'm the jack of all trades. I know a little bit of everything, but we were kind of reaching the limit as far as my programming prowess. So we're like, we need a programmer. Yeah. And so I reached out to like a bunch of Discord servers, like with the offer of like, hey, and at that time we had a YouTube channel that was, finding a little bit of success. And I was like, we have this YouTube channel. We're very serious about this. And we found a programmer, and his name is Colby, and he's from Australia. And
Whoa, nice.
yeah. So the time difference is a little tough sometimes, but
Yeah, so you guys aren't all local or anything.
no, yeah, and
No,
but working on a team completely changed everything. Especially from a programming perspective, that brought on like a ton of stress for me, because I was like, there's going to be these bugs that I don't know how to fix, and like, that's kind of a deal breaker, like if I'm not able to fix these bugs, post launch, and these games are just buggy messes, like no one's going to want to play my games. So and even having a team allows you to learn more, just like you can ask questions and not feel like you're like, taking someone's time, from their game. It's like, oh, this is our game, and I can ask as many questions as I want, like, why did you do that, and like, how did you do it? So having a team, it definitely has its pros and cons, but I definitely see it as more of a pro. a con would definitely be like, hey, like there's a big time difference between, the United States and Australia. It's like 14 hours. So like I can't just like reach out, like whenever. Like I need to be really deliberate. And as far as like meetings, like we meet every Monday in the morning. And so like that's morning for me and Greg, who's the artist. And then that's like 10 o'clock at night for Colby, who is in Australia, like I mentioned. So there's definitely like, weaving that kind of thing together, as far as like a team, and then the whole revenue aspect is something that I wanted to make sure was like very clear at the beginning of getting together. Like, hey, we're going to be like sharing the revenue across everything, and so just a lot of communication. Lots of communication. Dude. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that actually makes me think of a couple of things. You said, oh, the time difference is kind of hard, but if you want to think about it this way, you're always having someone work on your game 24/7, because like when you go to sleep,
very true.
He's getting up to do his work day, so it's always moving forward. It doesn't really matter, but if you think about it that way, it's like
that's very cool. I've never thought about it that way.
We're always something's always happening on the game. That's kind of cool.
That is very cool.
But yeah, I totally get what you're saying, because like I'd get the pros and cons thing. I actually really enjoy working with the team. I tried to, work with some friends and do some things back in the day, like when I first started on Pitterpot and things like that. Okay. And, I had some people contract with me and, a couple people on the team and stuff. But, like you said, it's stressful and, figuring out the revenue and doing all that kind of stuff. So, and most of them, most of my friends that all worked on that with me, they don't really do game development anymore. I've actually reached out to some of them and offered them to come back and, do some more work and things like that, and most of them are all like, I haven't done that game development stuff in years. So it's really sad, because I really enjoyed working with other people.
Totally.
And I'll just say this one little thing is like, I actually am, I've been solo deving for a while, and people who follow the channel know that, but I actually am working on a secret project with someone else right now, and it's not announced. So by the time this video goes live, that'll be the first inkling. No one knows about it. So I'm having a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, totally.
But so it's totally a lot of fun to work with other people. I guess you mentioned a bunch of things in that little segment where I can like, oh, we could dive in on this, we could dive on this. Before we go any farther about, the YouTube channel and starting your business and, how you think it's going to go with you and your, how you're managing it with your teams and stuff. Let's just go back a little bit. You got your intro. What are some of your favorite video games of all time? So we can get a little bit of insight of like why you like video games and, what's your inspirations, that kind of thing to start this studio.
Yeah, totally. So I grew up playing video games. I grew up with...
Sweet.
So I'm the youngest of four, and my oldest brother had a Super Nintendo. I'm sure he had an NES, but he had a Super Nintendo, and I watched him play A Link to the Past, and
oh, nice.
I was gone, man. I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is so cool. And
cool.
And I was like, oh, like I want to make games like that, But, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, like, people did not, there was no independent game studios out there. You either had to be like a genius, like, Miyamoto, making Zelda, or something else to really stand out and actually make anything. So I was like, that's never going to happen. So, I grew up playing games. My favorite game of all time is The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
Wow. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then my second favorite, I have a top three. My second favorite is Metroid Prime, the first one. And
that's my favorite.
It's so good. It's so good.
Well, we can connect right here.
Yes. Yeah. The remake was fantastic. I loved it, and I played it right away. And then my third favorite game is Hyper Light Drifter.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
indie choice.
Which is actually the game that really cemented, like, this is what I want to do. Like the feelings that I had playing that game, like I want to make someone feel that way, like that awe and wonder and stuff like that. I was done. I was like, I showed everybody. The first time I played it, I was like, I showed my mom and my dad. I was like, guys, you guys see this game? And they're like, I don't know what this is. And I was like, you don't need to know. It's just amazing. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Your interesting points just went up so high, because I'm sure we got to dive back on this, because there'll be comments. why have you chosen Majora's Mask over Ocarina of Time as your favorite?
So,
Tell me the difference right here.
okay, there's so many reasons. Actually, there's so many reasons.
This is so interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, go for
Yeah.
it.
So
Yeah.
Majora's Mask to me is like, oh, it's just like, this is. I'm gonna be called a heretic or something like that, but like, it's just better than Ocarina of Time in like every way. Like,
Whoa!
yeah, I know. So like, all the dungeons. Well, not all the dungeons, because Ocarina of Time has great dungeons, but like
It does.
But like,
it's a strong statement.
yeah, the stories, all the stories in Majora's Mask are just so good. And like you care about every single character in that game, and the gameplay helps with that, because anytime there's like a serious interaction, you get a mask, and you're like, dude, this mask is awesome. So it makes you want to talk to people, and then like you get all these masks, and then you get a really cool mask because you did all that, and like that's just one aspect like that like to me is such a great gameplay loop to inspire the player to look behind every nook and cranny. And then, like I mentioned, the story's fantastic. I don't know. I probably just when I played it in life, I was like, this is so cool. The music, I just love every single part of that game so very much.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Dude, that's super cool. Yeah. Because, I ask people, going forward on this show, I feel like, a lot of times when I talk to developers and stuff, they don't ever play video games.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of interesting, I feel like it's an interesting perspective to get back into why you want to make games and what games inspired you and what are your favorite games and why. And like, because for me, like, there's games that are very, very important to me like that, and they inspire my game design as an indie developer of like, or I want to make games like this one. So I think it's interesting to see like where everyone is coming from, like what games impacted them either in childhood or, it doesn't have to be childhood. It could be, you could have just played it last week and have been, the most amazing game and, impacted you in a significant way. So I find that interesting to get back to your why. So going forward with that, so is that why you wanted to be a game developer? Because Hyper Light Drifter, because you saw an experience and you really enjoyed it and you wanted to create those for others, or do you want to tell interesting stories? Tell me why you want to do game development versus any other type of artistic career, for instance.
Yeah. So I tried a lot of different artistic careers, and like really like interesting ones. Like I was an exotic animal trainer for.
Whoa, dude.
I was an exotic like camels, African water buffaloes, peacocks, parrots. I was training them all.
Dude, this is so cool.
Yeah, and so
That's
like
awesome.
it was very cool because I grew up riding horse as well, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And then I was like, no, like I would always remember like playing Majora's Mask and just loving the stories and I the thought of like, I needed to be a genius to make games. So I was like, maybe I'll draw. And so I tried comic books for a little bit, and I was terrible. I'm not a good drawer. And I was like, I can't do that either. And so I kind of like lived in that for a long time. I played a lot of Halo Reach growing up as well, nice. Which has a mode called Forge, which allows you to make levels and like, and people can play them and you can create stories kind of in them. And I played that for like ever. And then I don't know if you remember Project Spark, which was on Xbox One. It was like a game creation tool. It lasted like 6 months and then they closed it. It. Yeah, it was really sad. But I was like, dude, this is it. Like, I'm going to make games. And then like it closed down. I was like, well, that sucks. And then actually I played Cave Story for the first time. And and I was like, I played that game and I like loved it. And then it was like pixel art and it was like simple pixel art. And I was like, wow, like maybe I could do this. And like that was around the same time of like Shovel Knight being released and like kind of like the rise a little bit. And then I figured out that one dude made Cave Story. And like I was like, this is it. I have to try at least. And then I played Hyper Light Drifter like a year later and I was like, that's my why. And so I was like, I got it. This is what I'm doing, and the rest is history. I was like,
wow, that's super interesting. And honestly, you've convinced me to become an exotic animal trainer. I didn't know that you had such an interesting, cool job before the game development thing.
I did.
Yeah, that's super awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, dude, really interesting.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So now that we discussed a little bit about why you want to do this,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about your game development studio. So you just recently founded the studio in
Yes.
2023. We're in 2024, if anyone is unfamiliar when this was posted.
Yeah.
And yeah, so let's go forward of like, what have you done so far? And you can talk about a little bit. We'll go into your YouTube channel right after this. You can mention it here and all
Yeah.
that because I know you're pretty big and you're running the YouTube channel, getting a little bit of revenue in from the YouTube channel while you're developing the game and you're trying to work on a new game. So let's talk about your studio, your game, your plans for your games, etc. And let's move on from there.
Yeah. So it was about 3 years ago when when Greg and I started making games together, and that's when we really started. Before then I hadn't completed any games, and then when Greg and I started working together, that's when I really started making games, and so we made all those games, and we were like, cool, like now what? Like we how do we want to do this? And so I don't know. I think so. I worked a job in tech. I was like on tech support, and the tech world is just as crazy as like the indie game world and stuff like that. People get laid off all the time, and like I was working like a really good job. It was paying the bills, and then we were like really comfortable and stuff like that. And I got laid off, and yeah, then I got laid off, and I was like, okay, so like I have two options here. I could go and get another very comfortable job that pays decent and like continue that way, or like I could try this thing and try to create a studio and do that. And like I talked with my wife for a long time about it, and we agreed that hey, like now is the time. So in 2023 it kind of is marked by the creation of the YouTube channel. Like that's when like everything started, and so in 2023 I started the YouTube channel, and that really marks the time when I started taking the studio really, really seriously. So yeah, that kind of gets into it a little bit, but yeah. Yeah,
nice, man. So you started in 2023. You started off on the YouTube channel. Well, let's go into the YouTube channel and then we'll go into your game because I want to get a little specifics about the game you guys are developing and where you're planning on putting it and that kind of thing. So the audience can check that out, give you a wish list, etc., etc. But so you said you started off the creation of your studio basically with the creation of your YouTube channel. Can you tell a little bit about like maybe how that's going or why you decided to start Game Dev YouTube? Because in my opinion, a YouTube channel is super important in terms of game dev marketing. Like you need to have something in order to market your games. It basically a place where you can talk to your customers. I've been using YouTube for years, but I don't think that every single person has to do game dev YouTube if they want to do a game dev studio. So talk about why you decided to do YouTube, what your goals with it are. Are you wanting to be like a game dev YouTuber, tutorial style, like, Code Monkey? Are you wanting to become like Thomas Brush? We're familiar with, I know you're familiar with him. Or are you just wanting to kind of start to transition into devlogs in the future? Or you wanted to do, teaching content? What are you doing with your YouTube channel? Tell us your thought process behind that and how it's impacted your game development.
Yeah. So, I love YouTube. I had wanted to create a YouTube channel for a long time. I actually created a YouTube channel a long time ago, and I forgot the login information, so I can't even delete it. So that's floating around. Internet. Yeah, that's floating around somewhere out there. But the main reason for creating a YouTube channel was to drive traffic to the games we create. I love YouTube, but my heart is still a game. Like I still want to make games, and that is like where my heart is. But I realized that like so let me rewind a little bit. Like I want to do this I want this to be my career. And I realized that there are some things that I'm going to have to learn that aren't directly related to game dev in order to make that career, like YouTube, which drives traffic to the games that I create. And so the channel is a little over a year old now, January of 2023. So it's almost 2 years actually old. So I created that to really like drive traffic to the games we create. And I don't know if I could have created a YouTube channel without a team and like really put the time and effort into it that it needs, that it needed. Because like YouTube is like a whole nother beast. It's like a whole nother thing you have to learn. Like there's so like if you want to find like a little bit of success, like you can like upload on YouTube and like you can you could just use it as a way to like express yourself and like not like looking for like success and all that stuff, but like YouTube is like a part of like the business, and like I need that to succeed, and I need to like give it the time that it needs, and so having a team helped me in that so much. So yeah, I started a YouTube channel last year, and I didn't know anything. And so I just tried, and it really comes. I wrote it down because with anything, it really comes down to like 2 steps. If you want to like do anything, you need to do 2 things, and the one thing is just do it. Just try. Just start. Just take the first step.
Shia LaBeouf.
Just do it. Yes, exactly.
That's exactly.
I forgot about that, but just take the first step. It's the hardest thing. This was the hardest step for me. Like I mentioned, like I started a YouTube channel before, and I was like, dude, I suck at this. Like I can't do this. And the reality is like I did suck. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do it. But how are you going to learn if you don't start? So the first step is to just go and do it, and then the second thing is to learn. Like if just have like a learning mindset and look at like what has worked and what hasn't worked, and like that's just like been my mantra for YouTube. And why like I found a little bit of success on YouTube. I'm not like I don't have like 100,000 subscribers. I don't even have 10,000. Like, but like I've been really steady in my growth, and I've just been really excited for it and with it.
No, I think it's doing really, really well because, you know, you've got like, you just broke 3,000 subscribers, right?
Yep.
Yeah. New milestone.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
Awesome.
Yeah.
As long as you're hitting the milestones. I mean, that's really impressive because, I mean, I'm still at like, 2,000 something subscribers on my channel, but my channel is like 10 years old, you know, so yours is much, it's growing at a much faster rate. So I think you're doing, a pretty good job.
Thank you.
I haven't really watched too many of the videos. I told you I caught up with a couple of them. The ones that, fell into my feed, some of the ones that you have more views on got pushed out into some more, home menus and stuff like that. So, you've hit the algorithm a couple of times. You're starting to grow a little bit. I know that you're monetized and you're starting to roll in a little bit of revenue through YouTube and stuff like that. I guess just for for clarity, basically you and all your team members, you're all self-funding, right?
Correct. Yes.
At this point, so you haven't released any games. You got a little bit of revenue coming in from YouTube and stuff, but now you're working on your game. Let's talk about your game. I know you're getting ready to release it on Steam pretty soon.
Yep.
Tell everybody what your game is, what it's about, what's the genre, how far you guys are into it. I know, he's mentioned already on this episode that he live streams it on Wednesdays. Yeah. So you guys want to check out his channel. You can see some live development right there. Go ahead and plug you right here in the middle of the the podcast. But go ahead and talk about your game and tell us why it's special and what you like about it.
Yeah, so our game is called Cave Masters. It's basically a roguelike dungeon crawler meets Pokemon.
Sweet.
Yeah, so you're basically exploring a dungeon and picking up items and buffs and weapons along the way, but like every once in a while you'll find like a creature that can join your team, and then they help you explore and conquer the dungeons as well.
Sweet.
Yeah, our game is probably like 80% done. I'm like,
that's pretty far.
Yeah, it's we're like in the season of like we're just like stitching it all together, and like it's kind of like a grind right now, which this is like the biggest game I've been a part of, and so it's just like a lot. So that's what we're doing with that, and so we're probably gonna release it January is kind of what the release we're looking to. And so we're with this game, we're really not expecting to like peace out, like, hey, we were millionaires now and like we're done. Cool story, like we're really just using it. Yeah, we're really just using it as a guinea pig to like, hey, like, so this is what it's like to release a game. This is what it's like to have bugs post-launch. This is what it means to like do all these things that we've never done before. And we're really viewing it as a guinea pig. And then so, you know, we have like more games that we're working on that we're not ready to talk about yet, but that are going to release next year as well. So, so Cave Masters, is coming out in January, probably, like most likely. And, you know, we're using our YouTube channel to, you know, promote it. We have devlogs. We're like about 2 devlogs a month about it, and trying to just drive traffic to it. So yeah, we're pumped. It's crazy, but yeah, we're pumped about releasing it finally. So.
That's awesome. Actually, you know, these weren't questions. These weren't notes that I had written down previously, but this kind of makes me want to dive into like some of the specifics of this, because, you know, a lot of the people who watch my channel and most of the people who probably will watch the podcast are interested in, you know, game industry topics of like, you know, how are other people doing this, and what are some of the things that work and don't work. So I think I kind of want to dive into some of the specifics on like, you know, how long it takes to play your game. You know, you said it's roguelike. Is it endless runs? Have you is it like run based, or is it just elements of that?
It's run based. Yeah. Pretty much. Okay. Yeah, pretty much like Dead Cells, if you know what Dead Cells is.
Yeah, so you could basically play it forever.
Correct.
Not that everyone would, but you know, it's got some extended play time, and you know, you're looking at Steam. I was going to mention before I asked some of the stuff about your price and all of that, but January is actually, you know, I think an underrated launch time, because I've got a lot of releases under my belt, and looking back at some of my data, some of my January, February releases were like pretty solid.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think so, and it's because no AAA games really launch there. It's because like everyone launches between like September and November.
Okay.
And, or, you know, like everyone's launching all the big games. You know, like all the games coming out right now. Like October had like, you know, Silent Hill in the beginning of this month, and you got Call of Duty and from when we're recording 2 days.
Yeah.
And you know, not that everyone plays all these games, but these are quote unquote your big game launches that people go and buy.
Yeah.
You know, a PlayStation or an Xbox for Christmas to play for their, you know, teenagers or whatever.
Yeah.
And like all those games, you know, those big games, big RPG just came out from Sega and Atlas. Metaphor just launched, and you know, you just had Astrobot last month. It's just big game after big game after big game, and you know, a lot of the times January is kind of like dead. Everyone, you know, sometimes people put stuff in January, but you know, people just bought a bunch of PlayStations, a bunch of Xboxes. They got, you know, gift cards for Christmas. The kids are out there ready to buy games. Sure, they were going to go buy all those games that are released just before Black Friday, you know. But if you put a little indie game, you sneak it into the new charts right there in January. I think that's underrated.
Okay.
Don't take my advice as gospel out there, everyone, because it's like, you know, you can launch a game in January and bomb, but I think that my games that did do January were kind of okay. So I've actually been thinking in my head of like, oh, maybe I should have something ready for January, you know, because I just released a game this past week, Tilting Tiles Fires of Industry. It's a new puzzle game, and it launched on PS4 and PS5 on October 16th. And I'm like, I launched right the busiest month ever, and I'm like, this is one of my worst launches ever, to be honest. So I'm like, you know, maybe some of this stuff could have just like, you know, I just pushed it a little bit farther. So I think without even realizing it, you probably made a smart move. So let's talk about your Steam. You know, you're launching it on Steam.
Correct.
What's your price point? What are you looking at? What are you hoping to do with the game, et cetera, et cetera? Dive into a little bit of the details. You don't have to share anything you don't want to, but you know, anything that might help, you know, other game developers watching, that kind of thing.
So
with what you thinking?
Yeah, so with this game, we're thinking probably like a $5 price tag.
Oh, sweet, dude, that's so cheap.
Yeah, super cheap. I mean, it's not a super big game, and you know, that's kind of how we want to make games at Soul Engine. You know, at the start of this, I mentioned that I wanted to create comic books, and that's kind of how I've been viewing game development in general, and how we kind of plan on releasing games, like really short, you know, bite-sized stories that kind of like lead a larger story along. little tidbit, like all of our games take place in the same universe, and like so like
Genius.
you can like go and like play different games and be like, oh, like that's linked to this, and that kind of like makes you want to like hear this guy's story now, and you can go play his story, and so like the $5 price tag is actually maybe gonna be like one of the higher price tags we have in our games, and like we might kind of stick to like maybe even $3, maybe maybe
it's like mine.
Yeah, maybe even like 99 cents. Like I'm not opposed to that if it's like a really short game, but like you want to hear that story, and so that's kind of where we're going. That's kind of like the pace that we want to set for ourselves, because it also allows us to tell more stories. And like I really like, so we spent maybe 9 months, 8 months working on this game right now, and in my brain, like that's way too long. Like that's way too long to be working on this game. That's just my opinion. I expected the game to be done 4 months ago, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what everybody says. Like if you're making a game and you think it's going to take 2 months, times it by 2. Yeah.
Add 3 or 4 more months onto that. No, you just touched on a really important topic right there. It always takes longer.
Yes.
No matter what you say. Like even like my schedule with how many games I've released, I've like keyed in a like really cool like really tight process where I'm like, okay, this is gonna take about this long. Something is gonna pop up right there at the end where you're like, something took a little longer. Even if it's not even game related, something in your personal life might pop up to where you might not have been able to work on it as much. Something comes up where it takes longer. It's always a little bit longer. So if you're at 8 or 9 months in development at this point, launching in January, you're looking at a 1-year dev cycle basically. That's pretty impressive going on one project for an entire year. Especially, I mean, there's a couple ways to look at that. Like to me, that's like a pretty good accomplishment, because like even getting out like even if it's a smaller game in 1 year, and if it's like your first like quote unquote major release, like that's still impressive. Because a lot of times people work 2 years on a game, especially if you're like hobbyist and stuff and you're not full-time and you can only work like an hour or two. Like it takes a while to develop a game. So it's really awesome that you're right there at the finish line and you're about to finish. I know that feels really, really good. But for a year-long game and you're only charging $5, if this was the game that was quote unquote gonna make you sustainable, you'd have to ship a lot of copies.
Sure, absolutely.
So like, are you thinking? Let's talk about that. Are you thinking this is gonna be the one that's gonna make you sustainable, or is it gonna be the release after that? Are you hoping to just make anything off this? Do you care if you make anything, or do you want to maybe just make a little bit to get you to the next project? What is the goal for you and the team? What are you looking for? Is there a different goal for you and your team members? Because I know everyone's self-funding differently, so you talk about that. What's your goals? What do you expect realistically? And and we'll go from there.
Yeah, realistically speaking, I'm more kind of looking at the conversion rate of like of the audiences I have on different platforms like Twitch. I only started Twitch very recently, and I only can stream like once a week, and so but like I've seen some growth on there, and the YouTube channel. So I'm really looking for like, what's the conversion rate as far as like how many viewers our devlogs, how many views our devlogs get, and just seeing those conversion rates. So I think I would love to make it like $100, and like that's like
break even.
Nothing. Yeah. And so this game is absolutely not going to change our lives, but that's not really the purpose of it in my brain.
I hear you.
And I wouldn't expect that to be the case with any game. My expectation is never to go viral and never have to work a day in my life again. Like I would love to have like,
so rare.
Yeah, I would love to have, this is going to sound like maybe crazy, but like I'd love to have like 20 games that sell five copies like a month, and like that kind of stability, with like a lot of different games, selling just a little bit at a time, and kind of that's what we're going for. that's why like efficiency is super important for me. Like getting the processes down to like things that like I know and can complete faster. That's why I loved YouTube so much. I love YouTube because it's like game dev on overdrive. Because like you can release a video and be like, oh, like that flopped. So like, why did that flop? And like, why? What certain aspects of it didn't work? And then you ask yourself the follow-up question of like, what did work? And then you release your next video, and oh, that one did really well. So like, what worked about that? And like that's on a weekly basis. Game dev is like, I'm going to release a game in 3 months. It's a little harder to know like what worked and what didn't work. And so yeah, YouTube is fantastic because for me it flexes like all of, like the game dev muscles without actually doing game dev. And like I think I mentioned this to you before, but like efficiency allows me to fail faster, and like failing is just like a learning experience. And so like if I could fail a bunch like with my YouTube channel, like with my YouTube videos, and like learn and like flex that muscle of like analyzing about what does and doesn't work, and then transfer that over to like game dev of like, hey, like this game did do well and this game didn't do well, why? Like I'm all about flexing the muscles, getting efficient, and like breaking it down into smaller tasks to complete. Yeah, I rambled, but yeah.
No, cool, man. I was just trying to like listen to all that and like try to remember everything you said, because I'm
Sorry.
like, oh, I was like, no, that's good. I was like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about this. It's just you're hitting all the nuggets right away.
Yeah.
But I think your strategy, to go back to like the very beginning of what you said, is pretty good, because that's basically my strategy. Mm-hmm. That's like literally what I do. I have like maybe, I actually don't even know with this new one. I don't know if it's 15 or 16 games on PlayStation at this point. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But that's literally like my strategy. Like basically what happens is, I make a decent amount of sales usually in the launch month. So like I get a little bit of a boost, whenever I release a game. And then at this point I have like 15 games that, just sell 1 or 2 copies or whatever it is. I don't know how many copies. I don't drill in game by game on a frequent basis. But let's say they all sell like a little bit per month. So where it adds up to like, so there's always a little bit of, steady revenue coming in. Basically that is my model of basically I need 2 to 4 big months in the year where I launch the game, and then like all the steady revenue from the old games going in and out of discounts and things like that, all throughout the year, just provides a baseline of always games coming in, or always revenue coming in. So that's, it's a brilliant strategy. I would say, not to push back, well, we're going to talk about this a little bit, right at the end. I was going to ask you, because I know you saw my console videos where I was talking about console and stuff. I would say like the only thing about that strategy is, when you do it on just Steam, it starts to cost a lot of money.
True.
Because like I think people don't really think about this too much, because you were like saying, oh, I want to make $100 and then $5 a month from this game, and if I had 10 of these games, that'd be $50. But if you think about it, like every game, let's say that you wanted to put 10 games on Steam, they're all $100 to go on there, so you're already at $1,000, of Steam fees. Like that, they're going to get eaten up before you can even get there. And a lot of the times, if you're making, I've noticed my games have a decent, I put out a video recently, like they actually have low return rates. They're about in line with the industry average. It's usually like 5 to 10% is what most people average return rate is. If you're above 5 or 10%, then there's a reason why people are returning your games. And if you're under 5% on Steam, then you're doing pretty good. No one's really returning your games. But you also have to factor that in on like some of these smaller, if you make a really small game, sometimes even if you only charge a couple dollars, you think it's kind of crazy, but like people might play a game and like beat it and then return it to get their $3 back so they can use it on something else on Steam. So the only thing about Steam making small games a bunch to get revenue in is like you have to pay per game. And if they're really small, sometimes people might even enjoy it but still get their money back. You know, it's a tough economy out there.
It's true.
That might not be the only reason they return it. I'm sure, you know, some of the returns obviously come from people who can't run it on their machine, or they had some kind of issue, maybe some UI issue you didn't really see. That happens to my games a bunch, where I thought I programmed for all machines, but you know, like, you never know what someone's going to boot it up on, or if it runs on the Steam Deck or whatever, that kind of thing. So, you know, you could have, or they could just hate it, I guess. that could happen. That happens to me, or, you know, it's everyone. But so do you have any plans in the future to, you know, maybe do consoles? Are you know, looking into that kind of stuff, or are you just, you know, plan on doing Steam? Are you going to do itch? You know, I know you got your small games on there right now. You're basically jam games, the 7 games you made with your friend. You guys can go play them right now if you want to check out some of the experience. We can put that down in the links down below. If you'd rather rep that, or if you want, we'll put your Steam page. Maybe it'll, that kind of thing.
You can go play the demo for Cave Masters on itch. But
there you go. So where are you planning on putting all the games, if that's your strategy?
So again, going back to, you know, so right now it's just Steam, because I don't know Steam yet. So I would like to, like, learn Steam and get an understanding of it. But the future is absolutely, you know, consoles. Like, I actually am already, like, a Nintendo partner. I kind of started that process earlier this year, and just got that ball rolling a little bit. And but what I was gonna say is, it comes back to efficiency, and, like, I would love to release to consoles, because we've talked about a little bit before this podcast about, like, it was difficult, you know, like, it was a lot to do when you first did it, but now it's like, oh, like, I know how to do all this stuff. And to me, that's like, oh, like, I can get that down to, like, you know, get it down to, you know, really quickly be able to do that kind of thing. And that to me is, like, super attractive. Anything that I can, you know, break down into small tasks that I can complete and get efficient at, like, I'm probably going to do that. So consoles are definitely in the future. I don't know, probably not for Cave Masters, probably not for the next one either, to be honest. But definitely in the future, you know, like, maybe like the 3rd game from now. But I would love to do consoles.
This brings up, like, two good questions, I think, to dive in. I got to try to remember them both.
Okay.
All right. So you're about efficiency, and you're trying to tackle this path. So the first one is, like, and you really like YouTube because you get that feedback loop. But if you're really wanting to do efficiency, I'm just very interested in this, because I found the struggle to be real on my end. If you want to be efficient and you get your games done as fast as possible, do you notice that spending too much time on YouTube or really honing in your video process is pulling you away from game development? Have you ever spent a time where you, like, do a smaller upload schedule and notice that you get maybe more work done? Tell me how you balance the game development side versus, you know, the YouTube side, because I've noticed that when I work harder on videos and I put more time into scripts and put more time into editing, I might get some more views and stuff like that. But those don't really ever necessarily convert, you know, into sales or anything like that. So it doesn't actually, like, it's furthering my business, but it doesn't further my revenue right away to like stay open and keep my doors open. And usually what it does is it just slows me down, and I'm not working on games as much, and it takes longer to get a game out. You know, how do you manage your time if you're working on an efficient pipeline? What does your schedule look like? How much time are you spending on YouTube? How much time are you spending on game development? I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, totally. So right now, to be honest, with where we are at in development for our game, it's kind of like pipeline. Like, I'm waiting on some stuff that Greg's gonna finish, and then Colby's waiting on stuff for that to get finished. So it's all like we're kind of waiting on the pipeline a little bit. As far as like how YouTube kind of fits into that, and you know what that all looks like, I have days where I do very little development. I'll get in and like do, you know, some minor tasks. So right now in Cave Masters, I'm like creating rooms for the player to explore. And I'll be like, okay, today I'm just doing 2 rooms. That's going to take like 15 minutes. No big deal. And you know, when I first started YouTube, I was probably doing YouTube like 70% game dev, 30%. Like YouTube had taken like a big chunk of time. But now, like a video maybe would have taken me, you know, a whole week to complete. Now only takes me about like 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, like
That's going fast.
It is going fast, but like I've like found tools. Like there's a tool called Recut, which allows you just like put it in this thing and it like takes out all the silence in your video, and like that like saves me a whole day of work, like a whole evening, like 2 hours of work of going through my video and taking out all the silence. So that saves me 2 hours right there. Something that took me forever was creating thumbnails, and I was like, how can I get the thumbnails, and like I would spend a ton of time on them and they'd be garbage anyway. So I was like, how can I make thumbnails faster and them also be like better? And like that took a long time, but like I figured out how to, like, you know, I just use like one image now, and that image is like a very good image of our game, or maybe like a game that I'm talking about in the video, and like that's just that. And then I have some like big text, and like that has worked out great for me. So I was like, okay, the thumbnail, which would have taken me maybe 2 hours, I can now do in a half hour. So like I'm like just cutting out all this time that now can either go to the next video that I'm making or go to do some game dev, you know? So yeah, like, so as far as like an actual schedule, like Tuesdays I have a script written and record typically, and then Wednesday, and so I typically have nights to work on YouTube. And so, you know, Wednesday night, then I will, you know, remove the silence and start the editing process, and then Thursday I will do the editing, and then Friday I release it. And those 3 days I typically spend like an hour or two on the video, and so it ends up being like maybe 4 to 6 hours depending on the video to get it out, where it used to take me like 48 hours, you know, like of work. So finding those efficiency hacks like changed everything for me. And you know, I do wish I could spend more time on game dev, but I'm like working towards that as well. Yeah.
That's really awesome. That's like super impressive, because like I'm more on the end of like the 48 hours or more. It takes me forever to film something, write it out, and then, you know, to do all the editing. I feel like it takes so long for me to do the editing because now my computer's getting old and junk.
Same.
So it's like when I try to edit it, it's like it takes forever. Like if I'm jumping through the footage to like make a cut, it like freezes, and then I have to if I don't wait for it to like catch up so I can like edit that part out, it'll like the little handle in the editor will go back to where it was, and then I'll be like, oh, then I got to scoot back to that part I wanted to cut, and then like let it load again. So I'm like, oh yeah, it takes too long. So the efficiency of you going to 4 to 6 hours, dude, impressive. If I could do that, I would just do like one day of like I would do like 2 videos in one day, and like, you know, maybe even 3 videos if I could do 12 hours of work, and then just that'd be like the next 3 weeks of YouTube coming out, and then I wouldn't have to worry about it all. Genius, man. That's some high quality stuff right there. Maybe I'll get there eventually. Maybe I'll look into your method.
You totally can.
I'm just so haphazard. I like make a bunch of videos at one time, then have a bunch to come out, and then I'll just like abandon it. It'll be like 3 or 4 weeks since my last video, a month maybe, and then I'll be like, all right, here's another video, or pop a live stream. It's all so random these days. And plus, you know, you're a stay-at-home dad, you've got kids, and then, you know, I've got a son now, so it's like, you know, if I'm watching the kids or doing something like that, it's like, oh well, you know, video's going out the window now, or I can't record, or like you said, you record at night, I'm like, oh, I can't really talk too loud, I can't record now, he's sleeping, that kind of thing. Even if I've got work time, I'm like, oh well, might as well just work on the game instead. So then YouTube just gets pushed down the kick the can down the road once again. But hey, you know, it's fun, and I think some people appreciate the YouTube videos and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try to keep try to keep them going. I'm impressed with your skills, man. That's super impressive. So I was gonna roll back to what you were saying about the games that you wanted to have a bunch of them come out before you saw any success. You wanted to have them, you know, rolling in some revenue in the background. How many games do you think? It's hard for you to put a number on this right now, because, you haven't actually seen what this game is going to do. But, for those who are watching and who are interested, they're trying to figure out, like, is this something feasible that I can do? Could I self-fund myself and follow the same kind of path? How many games do you think it would take for you to become successful to where you're doing it as your career like you're hoping? And is there a limit? What is your limit of where you realize, maybe this isn't going to work out? Is there a point in time where you and the team have decided, if we don't meet these certain goals, then we're going to disband? Have you guys talked about that? Have you made any plans on, what your future looks like, basically?
Yeah, I think so we have like a 3-game plan right now.
Okay.
And so we have Cave Masters, and then we have another game in the oven right now. That's also kind of close to being completed. That game will probably be released I'm shooting for March, but you know how it goes. Might be April or May.
I was gonna say that's May right there.
Yeah.
Add 2.
Yep. And so that game is almost completed as well. And then we have a plan for the 3rd game then. And I think with those 3 games completed, I think I'm hopeful that those 3 games would at least create a salary for one of us. So I feel like myself, I would be just how like I view it, since I am a stay-at-home dad. I do have more time to work on this. I'm probably gonna be the last one to get the full-time salary, which I'm totally okay with. And so like like if I can get someone else on a full-time salary, that would like allow us to, again, come back to efficiency, like get us to that completed state faster.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it kind of is like a snowball then, because it's like then if we're able to keep that momentum going, then like the next person can get on the full-time schedule, and then like that again, like we're spinning faster now, and like we can keep going. So the plan is through the 3rd game, for the 3rd game to be released, and that to kind of get us to that status where one of us might be able to quit their job and be able to be in the project in a full-time status. And I also want to be clear that like my plan isn't really to be fully salaried from games alone. That's why I have a YouTube channel. I plan on having some sponsors in the future to also bring in some revenue. That's why I started Twitch, to have some revenue from Twitch coming in. And even like I've really been like cooking on this like efficiency plan, and like building plans for maybe people who are interested in buying like plans. So like just like thinking outside of just game development to support us, and into some other things that are related to game dev but not games specifically. So that's how I kind of plan on it. But really the 3rd game is where because these first 3 games are a little bigger than my plan that I mentioned earlier about like smaller stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the plan I have. But yeah,
nice, man. That's actually, there's a lot of good tidbits right there as well, just because like well, I think it's good that you've given yourself a little bit of a leeway with 3 games, just because a lot of times people might quit a job. I saw some indie devs talk about this recently on Twitter. You put a lot of hope into like this one game, and if the one game bombs, even if it does good, it might not be enough for what they were expecting, and then they end up having to hang their hat and give it up. So you giving yourself a little bit of fail-safe leeway in order to do a couple of games, really smart. I feel like you've done a lot of really smart things. I also think it's really good that you've clarified, because some people don't want to make that money from YouTube or Twitch or sponsorships. You've clarified that like, I want to make the money in games and this to be the majority, but I'm not looking at it to be 100%. There's these other things, that are going to be rolling in. Because I think it's a little disingenuous from some people, because there's some people on the internet, that will make all their money from YouTube basically, but kind of like tell you that, they're hoping to make the money off the games, that kind of thing. So I think it's good that you're, open, that say like, all right, this is, like a 50-50 or like a 40-60 or, you're letting people know that,
totally,
there's money coming in from the YouTube. It's not just this game. Because, I was recently on the Thomas Brush podcast, and I did a podcast with Thomas Stewart, and I swear I got so many people like emailing me and like digging into my games and like going to like these Steam analytics sites
wow.
and like trying to figure out like what the actual Steam sales were and like what kind of revenue I was making, like if it was legit and that kind of thing. So it's like anytime you post stuff like this, people start thinking like, oh, what's the dollar figures behind this? Even if we're just like casually talking, they're like, oh, what's the dollar figures on this guy's game?
Yeah.
Be like, the game hasn't released yet or whatever. They try to figure all that kind of stuff out. So I think that it's good that you're kind of like, oh, there's going to be some YouTube sponsors down the road and, maybe a course down the road. And, here's these games and they're going to make so much. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that, a good point of this, podcast is dev discussion. We kind of discuss things in the game dev space, just like this, what we've been doing this whole episode. And I kind of like to get into some of the industry topics and news and stuff like that. And I was just telling you before we got on to the podcast, I woke up this morning and once again, I popped on Twitter and saw that multiple game studios are shutting down. There was a big indie studio that shut down that made, I think it's called Thunder Horse Studios, maybe, and they made that Crimson game. It's like a pixel art game, 2D side scroller. And then there was some news about Ubisoft potentially closing down their studio that made Prince of Persia. And, so there's a lot of studios closing down, and that's just kind of constantly in the news. And I feel like I've been beating the dead horse about this of like the economy's not good. The game development industry is not doing so hot right now. But it kind of leads me into this topic. This will be our news topic for the last question because, you said you've given yourself a 3-game leeway. You're going to not take a salary. You're going to try to pay your employees first, which is very admirable, by the way. A lot of people would it works out for your situation, but for most people, they'd have to pay themselves first and then spread to the employees, so that's pretty. It's an interesting take on how you're going to try to get the studio to continue to run efficiently. So, you've talked about your efficiencies in YouTube, your efficiencies in getting your games out, your multi-game strategy, but we see all these game studios closing. How do you plan? And you've got your fail safes in place. You're giving yourself a little bit of leeway. I think all of this is really, really smart. How do you plan on sticking out, standing out, and surviving in an industry that is, just so volatile? Give me some of your thoughts on, the current state of the game industry. What your edge is. Is it just efficiency? Is there something special that you're trying to be doing? You don't have to give away all your secrets, but what's your plan of, surviving, in this dangerous shark infested waters that everyone sees themselves swimming in these days?
Yeah. I'm not sure how many employees the Thunder, that small indie studio you mentioned. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
how many.
I'll look it up while you're going.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many team members are there, but I know Ubisoft probably has like hundreds of employees, and like just from like a logistics and like statistics standpoint, like you have to pay for all those people, and like you like if your game if your game underperforms, then like you can't pay those people, and it's going to lead to layoffs and like closing of things, And so I think like in that, just keeping, what's the word? Like not overhead, keeping overhead low and like is like number one. Like, and I also think like, that's actually one of the main reasons why I started a YouTube channel, and I just recently started a Discord server and started streaming, and it's about like building a community of people, like building like having a group of people that is passionate about the work that you're doing, that they're going to show up, they're always going to show up. And I think like always, but they're going to show up, and like you can rely on those people, and not that like I'm expecting my like community to buy my games, because whatever, but like these people are like actually like interested in what I'm doing, and they're here because they are interested. And I think that is like such a powerful tool in today's day and age, because it's like cutthroat out there. Like if you're undersell, dude, you're gone. Like, see ya. And like that is just like the way it is. And like to me, that is like super high risk reward framework. Like, hey, like we're putting all of this on this one little thing. And like, if this little thing, you know, collapses, then we're all done. And it's like, no, like that's terrible. Why would you do that? You know? And so that's kind of why, like, I mentioned like multiple, you know, income, you know, multiple revenue streams, and you know, like that's just like the plan, and why I think like we might be able to, you know, survive, because it's not all just resting on one game. You know, it's not all just resting on this one decision. You know, because like, you have no, like, you could be working on a game for 2 years. You have no idea what the economy is going to look like in 2 years. You have no idea what people are going to be playing in 2 years. You have no idea what, like, just what the culture is going to look like in 2 years. So, just keeping the risk really low, you know?
Nice.
Yeah.
To sum it up, you know, for you, so you're going for low overhead.
Yes.
And spreading out your sources of income.
Correct.
Basically is the best you can. I think that's a really good idea. I do the same
community,
thing.
And building
community. And building the community.
Yes.
Audience building and low overhead and spreading out the income.
Yes.
I do most of the same stuff just because, you know, spreading out the income, you know, multiple game projects, if one fails, it's not good, but you know, you can have multiple ones. Some do better than others. Community building to me is the toughest one. You know, totally. I'm getting there, but you know, a good community. Yeah, I know what you mean. What you're saying, you weren't trying to say that you force every single person in your audience to buy all your games, but what you really mean is connecting with the audience that enjoys your game or enjoys the product that you're creating. That's like the most important thing. I looked it up to go back for clarity, so everyone listening can know what we were talking about. It's called Studio Thunder Horse. 21,500 followers.
Wow. Yeah.
On Twitter. And I pulled up their game on Steam. Very positive, 300 reviews.
Okay.
So that's it's a humble published game. Humble Bundle. So it's this was pretty big. This is a $20 game.
Okay.
So yeah, to me, like anytime I see a studio like that, like that's an indie studio, but they're, you know, an indie studio that would be heading closer toward like your double A's. You know, like. It's a lot larger than me or you.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know? Or the people that we talk to that are just starting off in the raw, like I'm working on the game in my bedroom, you know, doing that kind of thing, starting up the studio, getting legit, opening the business for the first time, that kind of thing. This is like, you know, tons of reviews, big publisher, high cost game, not a $5 game, a $20 game. To see someone like that, I don't know if it is a multi-person studio or not. And, you know, we have the benefit of saying, oh, we have low overhead because it's, you know, we're only really working on paying 1 or 2 people at most, you know, that kind of thing. And that's helpful advice for people watching. But, you know, stuff like to see this, it's kind of like, man, it really is it is a dangerous environment.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's the one that I was mentioning I saw this morning, just for clarity for everyone. So I think you got good strategies, man. I think I wish you the best of luck. We haven't talked too much. I know, you know, just for the sake of transparency on the podcast, I think me and you video called once or twice, maybe a couple times before this. So we started chatting, get a little friendly, you know, before we filmed the video. So, you know, I'm wishing you the best of luck. I'm excited to play your game and check it out. Thanks for being on the podcast, man. Before we shut all this down, is there any final thoughts? Anything you want to say burning on your chest that you forgot to say this whole time? Plug your stuff. Tell everyone where they can find your YouTube channel, where they can find your game. I don't know if you got your Steam page up just yet, but I know you got a demo or something of the game on itch. Tell everybody all about that before we wrap up.
So if you want to support us here at Soul Engine Studio, you can hit a subscribe button on our YouTube channel. That's where you get the updates. We do not have a Steam page up yet. It's a total. I understand how terrible that is because it is terrible. But like I said, this is like a guinea pig. So if you want to support that game, though, you can, you know, subscribe to get the updates, and you can play a demo on our itch page, which is, I'm sure he'll have it linked here, but it's also a link on our YouTube channel. But yeah, it was just great being here, dude. I love chatting about this stuff. I love talking, so I appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, dude, I'm the exact same way. I'm like, oh, I just love talking. I just talk to anybody about video games and development and stuff. You know, I think we mentioned this before we go. I think we mentioned this one time we were talking earlier, that it's just, you don't find I mean, you find a lot of people on the internet, but you don't see people in real life, that are doing the indie game thing that often.
Yeah.
Or, there's a ton of people online. You look everywhere. There's a bunch of people who want to try the indie dream, but you don't ever, at least for me in my experience, I've never run across someone who's like starting their own game studio, likes video games when they're this old. Me and you are about the same age.
Yeah.
And, like there's some game or something in childhood, Majora's Mask, for me, it was Spyro the Dragon and Metroid Prime. It's something that made me go, oh, okay, I want to do this as an old man.
Totally.
So talking about this kind of stuff with someone, it's a breath of fresh air. It's fun. I always have fun just seeing what other people think about video games, game development, that whole thing. So I had a blast chat with you, man. Thanks for coming on the show. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode number 2 of Dev Discussion. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit the subscribe button on the TreeFall Studios YouTube channel, and go ahead and let me know if there's any guests you would like to see on the show in the future. Before I go, I got to give a huge shout out to everybody who supports TreeFall Studios on Patreon.com. I got to give a personal shout out to PLP, Shark and Minnow, Space My Name, and Thomas Stewart. Thank you guys for what you do for TreeFall Studios on Patreon.com. I couldn't do what I do without you guys. All right, guys, without further ado, I'll catch you in the next episode.